Find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
Memento Mori, an object serving as a warning or reminder of death. Death is inevitable, but how it happens can be tragically unfair. It can be dark, cruel, hateful, or just plain bizarre. I'm Megan, and I'll be your guide through these stories of chaos and devastation. Come listen as we dive into all types of true crime cases and learn about the evil that lurks among us as well as the victims that deserved none of it. You can go to mementomoripod.com for more information. Monsters are real, and they look like people.
This podcast contains strong language and adult situations and may not be suitable for those who are easily offended. Welcome to the Fuck My Work Life podcast, where the work stories are real, the laughs are contagious, and most of us can agree that work sucks. So let's clock out and tune in. Just a little trigger warning for this episode. It's a little bit heavier. Actually, it's a lot heavier than our normal episodes, but it's not a super heavy episode. But there are some topics discussed that, I don't know, could trigger people. So just a fair warning for you all before we dive into this. Welcome back, fuckers, to the Fuck My Work Life podcast. I'm Kay.
And I'm Jay. Welcome back, fuckers.
It's another episode. Yay.
Another episode. This is a shorty, right? Coffee break?
I don't know. I feel like we just decide at the end if it's going to be short or long, or we'll see.
It could be a grower or it could be a shower.
That's right. We'll never know until the end.
We'll never know.
So, Jay, are you aware that May is Mental Health Awareness Month?
I am aware.
Well, good. Because it is.
Okay. Should I have elaborated?
No. I was just saying, if you knew and if our audience was aware, I'm sure a lot of them are. But I figured we could do kind of a special episode based on that-ish, kind of touching on a little bit of mental health. I do want to put the disclaimer in that Jay and I are nothing even close to experts or psychologists or psychiatrists. So we're going to be talking about stuff, and it's just going to be our personal experiences. We might have some of our personal advice,
kind of, yeah.
But again, not professionals.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, exactly. So anything you want to talk about your week before we dive in? Or
my week's been okay. It's just Monday, Tuesday, I made myself get out to the garage and work on this guy's parts for his bike.
Yeah. Because
I've been really slacking on that, and I need to get on it. And today was cool. It got me back into it. I got a few parts painted. They look really nice. So, it kind of got my groove back, so to say.
That's good. My week. Nothing exciting. Oh, no, I am going to say this. I'm not drinking it tonight. I'm saving it for the recording we're doing with a guest on Friday. But we had our triumphant return to trivia last night at South O. We haven't gone for a while because our trivia pal has been out on medical leave. And once she got the okay to go out and start doing stuff, we're like, okay, we're going to do trivia. And we got first place.
Let's go fuck up some trivia.
Did I say that already? That we got a first place?
Well, you said we had a triumphant. Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
It was pretty cool because the table right next to us, we were neck and neck every round.
Every round was 1 point.
1 point. And then the last round, they do a thing called 1 question, 10 answers. And basically it's a list of some sort or whatever. And this one was the top 10 grossing tours of 2022 for music tours, concert tours. And oddly enough, the Neatcast boys had talked about this list on their podcast. I don't think it was it was either the day before or last week. I can't remember. So I remembered a few of them from that. And I think thanks to that, we pulled ahead with a 2-point lead and won or something. So
no, we won by 1
thanks.
point.
All right. Well, either way, thanks, Neatcast boys. Making people win trivia all over the place. Okay. So, and that's what I was going with that. What we win is a 4-pack of beer. You already drank yours. I'm saving mine for the next episode. Anywho. Moving on. So, Mental Health Awareness Month. Have you, Jay, heard of the term trauma bonding?
Yes, I have.
What does it mean to you?
Well, trauma bonding is like, as far as work is concerned, I don't really know, but I know that trauma bonding is like kind of what like abusers or abusees get with their abusers in a sense.
Yeah. So the clinical definition of trauma bonding is a psychological response to abuse. It occurs when the abused person forms a connection or relationship with the person who abuses them. The person experiencing abuse may develop sympathy for the abusive person, which becomes reinforced by cycles of abuse, followed by remorse. The bond is created due to a cycle, basically, of abuse and then positive reinforcement.
Yes.
So that's the clinical definition of it. And I've heard the term thrown around, and I think a lot of people kind of use it in a different sort of way. And I came across a TikTok where the guy was talking about, forming a trauma bond with his coworkers over the trauma they experience at just work together.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was like a kind of funny TikTok. I shared it on our Instagram. But then it like had me start thinking, and I Googled it. I was like, okay, so trauma bonding at work, just to see what came up. And I came across this article, actually a blog post by behavioral scientist Dr. Carrie Yazid. And it's the name of the article. Where is it? I had this stupid document all like spaced out nicely and bolded because I did it at work where we have Windows. And then I email it to myself and I open it up on my Apple product and all of my formatting is gone. So now it's like hard to scroll through and find my place in my notes. What was I saying? Oh, the name of the article. Or the name of the blog post that she wrote was, "Can you form a trauma bond with your 9-to-5?" And that was one of the first things that popped up when I Googled it. And I was just like, oh, what's this? And then opened it up and read it. And I was like, okay, we're going to do this. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. Perfect time. So a little bit about Dr. Carrie Yazid. So she is a behavioral scientist, and it says in her About Me, "I study human behavior as it relates to psychological safety in the workplace, utilizing narrative and grounded theory research, the collection and encoding of untold stories." So she's certified in diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace with a background in mental health and academia. "I help companies to understand what is working and not working within their organization through the untold stories of their employees." So it sounds very similar, different title, but very similar to what our previous guest back in December, Dr. Sai, does. He is institutional organizational psychologist, or?
I think so, yeah.
But he said kind of basically the same thing, basically the psychology of work. So it sounds like very, very similar. So definitely go check out that episode too. Listen to that. It was very interesting hearing his viewpoints on things. What I'm going to talk about is I'm going to read a little snippet from her blog post. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but definitely go check out the whole article. The link will be in the show notes. But to quote from the article, it says, "Trauma bonding occurs when an unhealthy attachment is developed by a person who has experienced trauma in an interpersonal setting with the abuser. An attachment that is so strong, it is emotionally difficult to let go. It sounds like something we'd hear about when it comes to unhealthy romantic relationship, but unfortunately, trauma bonding can take place within families, religious groups, and even our workspaces. Rarely do we stop and consider someone having an unhealthy attachment with a toxic boss or job, but why not? In many ways, our jobs can be abusive, and let's not deny the fact that some bosses have narcissistic traits. So believe it or not, trauma bonding is very common among employees who find themselves in toxic work situations. I was reading that and I was like, yeah. So it's an interesting thing to think about, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the stories that we've read over the past 2 years have been, other than shit, have been like, my boss sucks.
Yeah.
My coworkers suck. My boss sucks. My company treated me like shit. You know, we hear it a lot. So it's interesting to think about people that stay in those situations.
Yeah. You know, I wonder, you know, when I hear this, and we've talked about it throughout the week a little bit, that we're going to do an episode about this. And I've thought about it, and, you know, I think you've probably done the same thing. The first thing that pops in my head is, okay, who at work is trauma bonded? You know, and I think when you read the definition of trauma bonding and then you think about correlating that into your work situation, I think, me personally, like, I'm looking around and I'm like, well, they're trauma bonded, you know, but I think it probably holds a little different kind of weight. What?
I was raising my hand. I'm probably one of those people.
It holds a little different kind of weight at work than it does in the situation that you would normally think of trauma bonding in.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. You know? Hopefully you're not experiencing, no abuse is good. And I don't want to put this, what's not delicately. Hopefully you're not experiencing like physical abuse or extreme verbal abuse in your job.
Yeah.
But there are other ways to be abused as a worker, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I get what you're saying. Yeah. It's not as extreme as like an interpersonal abuse situation. I would hope.
Yes.
Who knows? But
yeah, you would hope. But there are those, you know, you've got to think that there are those situations where it's like a small office, and you know, like, you know, I think of first thing I think of is like the 80s, where it's like a real estate office and it's some greasy real estate agent who just flirts with the ladies that work there.
Yeah.
You know, because that, like, you know, but then also pays them very well and gives them big bonuses, you know, because that could be a way where you like form a bond with this person. Like, yeah, you know, they say things that they probably shouldn't say, but also like they treat me really well, that, you know, I've got a nice house and I've got bills paid and I have them to thank.
Yeah. I mean, that's that cycle it was talking about. That's why you form that bond, is you experience the negative behavior, and then there's just a little bit of reward shown too that kind of just keeps you clinging on.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So she listed some signs that you might be experiencing trauma bonding in your job. So I'm going to read those, and we can talk about if we've experienced that at all in our work life. So the first one, feeling like you've been through so much on this particular job that you can't just throw away the history you have with it. So basically putting up with whatever you're going to put up with because I've already invested so much time in this. Yes.
I mean,
I
yeah,
feel like
absolutely. I've been at my job for 15 years. I've definitely put up with shit, but I've also, you know, I've put up with shit at work, but I've also like accepted it, you know, accepted that, like, look, this is just the way it is. And it's helped me, you know, it's helped me to be like, well, this is the way this goes and there's nothing I can do about it. So I just need to keep my head down and keep plugging away.
Yeah. You know, they kind of build in this, a lot of companies build in this way to keep you hanging on and loyal, like the longer you work here, the more vacation hours you get, or,
Yeah.
the more sick hours you get. So you put in all this time and you're like, well, crap, if I start over, I'm like back at the bottom rung somewhere. And like all of this shit I've built up over the past however many years is just fucking out the door.
Yeah.
So, all right. So the next one, criticism. You're always made to feel like your work isn't good enough.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. That's been par for the course. I feel like I don't know how this is trauma bonding. This is just shit that goes on at work. This, like made to feel like your work isn't good enough. But where is the bonding?
This is the things that your job does to you. This is the abuse. So these are the things that happen to you at work that can cause you to form a trauma bond.
Okay. I got you now. Sorry. Or I misunderstood you. But yes.
Yeah. Like I mean, sometimes I think I've experienced where, you've done a decent job, but you work with people that can't, just for whatever fucking reason, can't tell you that because it somehow lessens them. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the reasoning and the psychology behind why they do it, but I've definitely experienced that where you're just like, okay, like I'm working my ass off and for what? Next is manipulation and gaslighting. Being told that if you do extra work, it will contribute to your career success. Not being briefed on important issues, but still expected to know what's going on. And if you complain, being told it's all in your mind and you're being difficult.
In a way, yeah. Yeah. I constantly battle with just like the information that is given to people at my level is very minimal, but yet we're just expected to go about our day the way we normally would. And, it's frustrating when they don't realize that, like, all this information, but you're not telling us. And then when we get frustrated, when we find out, you want to know why we're frustrated. And it's like, well, you knew all along that this was happening and you said nothing because it was a need to know basis. And it's like, well, we all work here, so we all need to know.
There have been many things that where my department is, I'm privy to information maybe before some of the rest of the masses, and the way that information is sat on for so long when the things are technically already supposed to be in place. And it's just like, well, the communication aspects, I mean, just the communication is bad, but also the fact how much people hold on to information there. It's just like, why? If this decision has been made, just fucking tell everyone. And then you feel like an idiot when the thing comes out and you're like, oh, I was supposed to be doing it this way and like no one told me. Okay, cool. So next is resignation and giving up. So constantly saying you're going to quit, but never leaving out of fear that things will be worse with the new employer and your dependency on familiarity with your current coworkers and management. This is 100% me. 100%. I scroll through LinkedIn all the time looking for jobs, and I'm like, okay, this could be cool. I need to quit. I'm not happy where I am. It's driving me insane. But again, that starting over, right? Starting in at bottom of the rung in a new place after putting so many years, and then what if it's worse there? What if it's fucking worse? And then also the imposter syndrome creeps in. Like, yeah, I'm qualified for this job, but oh my God, maybe I suck at everything and I'll be really bad at it and they'll hate me and they'll fire me and then I won't have any job.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little different because if what I'm about to say doesn't show my trauma bonding, I don't know what will. I feel like this is the best job that I've ever had. And it scares me to look for another job and try to start from the bottom, because there's parts of me that say, like, I shouldn't even be at this job, I mean, and it's not it's not just my pay because I've been there so long, because I've worked jobs before where I've made close to what I'm making now. And it took me less time to make that. But those were like commission-based jobs, you know. So it's not the pay, it's just the time that I put in. And also those jobs were like very labor intensive. I was working hard, sweating my ass off, like really beating myself up to do those jobs. And this,
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the air condition. I think, I think I'm trauma bonded.
Yeah. So the next one is loss of self, feeling like you can't survive without your job. Your world literally revolves around your work 24/7, and you've become a workaholic. I definitely know people like this. I am not a workaholic.
Yeah, me either. I am not at all. When I clock
Yeah.
out, I'm done with work.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like I can't survive without my job, insofar as I won't be able to buy food and pay rent, keep a roof over our heads and that kind of stuff, you know? But it's not like I must work because I love it so much. That has never been me. I do know people like that, though, and it's just like, damn.
I think the percentage of people who have that mentality where they have to work because they're workaholics, I think that's a pretty low percentage. I think most people have to work because they've got mouths to feed. They've got to keep a roof over their head. They've got to pay car insurance, car pay, you know, the financial
Burden.
gains of working. Yeah, burden, that's better. Not gains, but the financial burdens of working is just, it's too much to think of not having that.
Yep. And then addiction to the cycle, feeling like this is the perfect job for you and throwing yourself into your work, then moments later, absolutely hating your employer. I get more of the second one than the first one. I feel like
repeat it. Sorry, I was getting bitten by a cat.
Feeling like this is the perfect job for you and throwing yourself into your work, then moments later, absolutely hating your employer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the second part, definitely.
Yeah.
I've never felt like I loved this job so much. Never. You know, there were times when I was traveling because I had a really good time traveling, but I've never been like, I love this. I can't live without this.
I can throw myself into my work if it's a project that I enjoy, but at the same time, I'm like, but I hate my employer. All right. Poor boundaries. You're expected to go beyond your normal job duties, and if you refuse, you are labeled as disengaged, told that you lack motivation, and aren't seen as a team player. You receive calls after hours from your supervisor, and you are expected to answer.
The first part, yes. In my current position, when I started in this position, there was, you did this. And then they would constantly like, okay, now you need to do this on top of it. And now you need to do this on top of it. And now you need to do this on top of it. But like getting calls after work, no, I don't work at a place where that is feasible. Like it's not going to happen. I'm not high enough in the company to be in that sort of position. But I can guarantee that there are people that we work close with that do have to deal with that, where like when they go home, they're getting calls from people.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't personally have to do that. But the workload that has been put on top of me has steadily increased with the just minute little stupid things I have to do that I didn't have to do a couple years ago. And then at the end of the year, it's like, well, we only have this much in the budget for everyone. And it's like, yeah, but you fucking increased our workload, you know? Anyway.
Yeah, well, you just think about the way our stupid review ratings, I think they've changed them a little bit, but not really. And I know a lot of companies, because I've talked to people who have the same thing. You have to give yourself a 1 to 5 rating, and a 3 is basically you do your job, you show up and you do your job. A 4 is maybe you do a little bit extra, or no, actually a 4 is you do a lot extra, and then
Above and
5 is you like
beyond.
change. 5 is you
Change the
change the
company.
way the company like fucking, you have to do some big goddamn thing. I'm like, who does that? Like maybe a few senior leadership people.
Yeah.
Why is this even a thing for us? If we show up every day, we do the job that we were hired to do, that should at least be a 4 right there. If you go a little bit above and beyond, a 5. Like, fuck you and your ratings. Like, it's just a way to make you feel like a piece of shit.
Yeah, I've brought that up before.
And to work harder for the same amount of money.
Yeah, I've brought that up before, that it is so defeating for an employee to have to rate themselves, and your rating scale, the top of the rating scale, in 50% of what they're rating themselves on is unattainable. Like you are giving them goals that is unattainable, and that is so defeating for people, because there are people who really strive and work hard, and it doesn't matter what they do. They will never get the top of the heap with that. And I've been told before, well, that top of the heap is basically like it's one person in the whole company who does that. And it's like,
so why have it for everyone?
So why have it for everyone when it's the person who gets it, their title ends in an O. CFO, CEO, ITO, or it's like it's so defeating for people.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's it for some of the ways to tell if you might be trauma bonded. And so before we get into maybe some ways to break out of the cycle, we're going to listen to a little promo from our friends over at the Against All Oddities podcast.
Against All Oddities, a podcast about three brothers coming to terms with the oddly true and the truthfully odd. I'm middle brother Chris.
I'm youngest brother Tim.
I'm Nate.
And together we talk about werewolf, ghosts, astral projection, immortality, aliens, ESP, the devil, witchcraft, the occult, UAP, Stargate,
and sometimes color.
We have over 4 seasons of weird stuff with new episodes monthly. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
And we are back. Make sure you go check out their podcast. They have a lot of really interesting topics.
Yeah.
So go check them out. So some of the steps that Dr. Carrie Yazid suggests to possibly breaking out of this cycle, I'm going to name the steps that she named, but I'm going to kind of paraphrase their explanations. So the first one, start by giving yourself permission to heal. So any type of abuse can leave a mark. Realize it's not your fault and that you deserve to feel good about yourself as an employee and within your profession. Definitely, like however that looks for you. I think just the first step of recognizing I don't deserve to feel this way every day can go a long way. And it's whether it's whether it's changing your mindset and making it better for you, kind of stepping away mentally from things, or, realizing that you are worth more and doing something to get the fuck out, or change somehow. Next is build a support system. So whether it's a therapist, friends, coworkers, anything like that, have people around you that support you in whatever way, shape, or form you need. So I know we mentioned that some people kind of consider trauma bonding is building those bonds with their coworkers over the job situation. And if that's something that helps you get through your day, we had our work besties episode 2, where a lot of people were like, if it wasn't for my work bestie, I would have lost my mind by now. So shout out to B.
Shout out to B. I don't really have a work bestie.
I'm sorry.
I'm fine with it.
You got Jake from State Farm next to you.
Yep.
You kind of isolate yourself at work.
I do. It's the way that I put my head down and just do the work. Luckily, I'm in a position where I don't have people answering to me, and I don't have to like really answer to people. I can just put my head down and do the work and then go home. And that goes back to like changing your mindset, because I'm outspoken. I'm very outspoken.
What?
Well, in some ways at work, I'm outspoken in a bad way. I used to be really bad, where I would just openly just bash what was going on. And now I don't. I save it. I save it for my review. When I have my review, and I don't bash the place, but I let them know, like, look, this is so easy to solve these problems, and you are the leadership. So you should understand that as a leader, there are small things you can do to solve some of these problems. And a lot of times I just get the, yeah, I know. And then it's the same old, it never changes. So I've kind of just like, I still bring that stuff up. Every single review I have, I still bring it up because I really feel that some of the points that I bring up can change things. And then I just go back to head down, do my work when I get work, and go home at the end of the day.
I mean, not everyone has that luxury, but like I said, do whatever it is that works for you to kind of get out of that cycle. Next is set healthy boundaries and start practicing self-care. So start saying no to things that are out of the scope of your job. Do not overcompensate for lazy coworkers, and do things outside of work that make you happy. This is a big one. A lot of people feel like they cannot set those boundaries because they're afraid of the repercussions, or going back to like being told that they're not a team player, and all this shit that they drill into your head. What was that? It was Severance, when everyone go join our Patreon and listen to our Severance recaps. But there's the line from Rickon's book that's like, you don't need your job needs you. And yes, like fundamentally you need your job, like we said, for food, roof over your head, but your job needs you just as much. And especially in today's job market, where it's fucking hard to find people to hire that are quality workers.
Yes.
Your job fucking needs you. So set those boundaries and take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I also want to focus on do the things outside of work that you enjoy. So for me, it's doing yoga every day. It's crocheting. A lot of the times it's sitting on the couch with the animals, watching Great British Bake Off, things that things that I look forward to that have nothing to do with work. Can be little getaways or whatever. And then the next one is plan your exit strategy. So sometimes the only option you're left with, if you've tried everything else, is to resign, which I know is very scary, right?
Very scary.
Change is hard for everybody. Thinking about, it might be worse in another place, starting at the beginning, all that stuff. It's really, really scary. But like, if you're miserable somewhere, maybe the chance that you go somewhere else and you're not miserable should be the deciding factor, Yeah,
well, there's always, I'm sure everyone's heard it multiple times, that Would you rather work in a job where you make good money, but you're miserable every day? Or would you rather work in a job where you made a little less money, but you did what you love?
Yeah.
You know, and that's a decision that people have to make. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, a lot of people make the former decision.
Yeah. So some things you can do to make that exit a little less scary is pay a little extra money and have your resume done by a professional. Really clean up your resume because, again, in this job market, some of the resumes we get, I'm just like, holy fuck. How and why did this happen?
They got an interview?
Yeah. Having a really nice professional resume will make you stand out from the crowd. Try working with a career coach or, seek out ways to improve your skill set. And that you don't necessarily have to pay for that. I'm sure there are things on YouTube, things on how to do Excel and PowerPoint and teach yourself how to use different softwares and stuff so you can add those skill sets. And, hop on LinkedIn and start making some connections with people. Post articles, get active, and get your name out there. I'm like talking myself up for all of this too. Like, do the things.
That's good. I mean, that's good.
So that's kind of it for like ways to kind of deal with that. If you think you've formed a trauma bond with your job, maybe consider some of the ways to break that cycle. I highly, highly recommend you go check out Dr. Carrie Azid's website. She's got a lot of other blog posts, of course, because she's a behavioral scientist relating to the workforce. A lot of really interesting articles on different situations in the workplace. We will link that in the show notes. But we also touched on in the beginning, forming those bonds with your coworkers. And we got a story from Tim over at Against All Oddities. I'm going to read that to you guys now. All right, the title of this email is Trauma. It says, to the K and J that it may concern. Hope this email finds you well. This is Tim from the Against All Oddities podcast. Just wanted to send a quick friendly reminder about your request for trauma bonding experiences. After sticking a pin in that request, I'd like to circle back with it now. Fucker throwing in that corporate speak. Generally speaking, working in a hospital has various levels of trauma and subsequent bonding with your coworkers. There's a whole spectrum of violence in healthcare. Large amounts of blood coming from whatever orifice you can think of, infected ulcers with exposed bone, falls, breaks, stabs, gunshots, plenty of code blues, or seeing someone get quote-unquote clamshelled in a trauma bay. Google the words, not the images. Everyone develops a dark sense of humor, partially as a coping mechanism, but also because when you've seen really bad, cracking jokes for the kind of bad becomes second nature. This is also where experience and trust comes in. If a nurse calls and says, I walked into the room this morning and it smells like mama's home-cooked GI bleed, I trust this person. I trust that statement. We've already seen this together a few times. The less dramatic, but in my opinion more traumatic situations, are the patients you've seen dozens of times or that have to stay in the hospital for weeks or months. You get to know them as a person and not a room number or a disease process. The worst is when you see them one day and come in the next day and they've died overnight. Everyone's first thought is, what did I miss? What could I have done differently? There's a lot of guilt right up front, no matter what. Everyone supports and reassures each other. It's like a work family that loses a friend. Sometimes you go to the funerals. Sometimes that feels like an overstep. The whole unit will remember, but shit still needs to get done, and the unit is still full of patients, so we all keep going. Sometimes it is someone's fault, though. Something missed or medication error. I feel for them because they have the trauma without the bond or support. There have been suicides over those situations. I'm currently a physician assistant for an inpatient cardiac group. Previously, I was a respiratory therapist for a medical ICU. Before that, I was the respiratory tech that cleaned equipment and restocked oxygen tanks. There was a really pretty respiratory therapist that took me under her wing. She made sure I knew what to do, and she knew I was in respiratory school, so she'd go over the ventilators and teach me about the premature babies. On a clinical rotation, she took me to a C-section, and I actually got asked to leave because I was wobbling and about to pass out. Despite my inability to keep up with everything she was teaching me, she still married me. Thank God. She has different trauma. I've been to funerals with her where the casket was the size of a shoebox. She keeps in touch with dozens of parents at the parents' request who send her pictures of their grown, healthy children that used to be in the NICU. My wife is still friends with some of the parents that were sitting in the front row of those funerals. She was one of the few people that got to meet and hold their child. I'm going to cry. I'm tearing up. They'll share those memories from the hospital together forever, and I'm proud to be married to someone strong enough to do that. They'll get lunch or come over to our house sometimes. There's crying, but lots of laughing and hugs, too. Whew. Anyway, bonding and friends are cool. I'm not crying. It's the pollen. One time I saw a patient shit a corn kernel hard enough that it hit the wall on the other side of the room.
There you go.
Haha, I'm gonna go lift weights now. Big heavy ones and drink hard Mountain Dew. Finger guns, Tim. Thanks for making me cry, Tim.
Yeah.
No, that was an awesome email. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I feel like we should go back and put a warning at the beginning of this episode. Trigger warning.
That there's poop in this episode, even though we said there's not poop in every episode.
Trigger warning. There's some heavier
feels.
topics. Some feels and some heavier topics. I'm actually going to put that in now and just cut it and put it at the beginning. All right, Jay. Happy Mental Health Awareness Month to you.
Happy Mental Health Awareness Month to you, Kay.
I hope you guys found this episode interesting. It was definitely different from our norm.
Yeah, it's definitely a different episode from our normal episodes, but it's good to, it can't all be just laughs and, giggles, I guess, and poop.
Yeah. I mean, it's mostly that. So, but every once in a while, I think it's an important topic to discuss, especially this month. So,
yeah.
So if anybody would like to share their thoughts and feelings about any kind of trauma bonding that they've experienced with their jobs, or if you have formed a quote unquote trauma bond with a fellow coworker over a shared situation, we'd love to hear about that as well. This ended up being a grower.
Yeah, it was a grower. We thought it was going to be a shower, but
whatever. It's a long. It's not a coffee break. A little bit too long for a coffee break. But thank you guys so much. If you're still listening, thanks for sticking with us through this episode. Thanks, Tim, for your email. And we love you, fuckers.
We love you, fuckers.
Bye.
Keep plugging away. Bye.
Keep on keeping on.
Thank you for listening to the Fuck My Work Life podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please follow, subscribe, rate, review, and tell your friends. Send your workplace stories to fmwlpod@gmail.com or call our rant line at 310-818-3273 for a chance to be featured on a future episode. For more fun, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at FMWLPod. You can also join our Discord community to chat with us and your fellow fuckers. We've got a Patreon where for $5 a month, you get early access to episodes, bonus content, and more. Grab yourself a t-shirt, pint glass, or yoga mat in our merch shop. All links can be found in the show notes. The Fuck My Work Life theme song is by Big Foss of the Chat Smash podcast. Remember, don't let the man get you down. Bye, fuckers.
little twat. She is such a fucking
I just
monster.
see your little microphone. I see your microphone stand going.
She just wants to play with all the things. She's so cute. I don't know about you, but with a busy work schedule, I never have time to sit down and read. Luckily, there's Newsly. Newsly is an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android. It picks up articles about the most trending topics on the web and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time ever, the entire web becomes listenable, all in one place. You can browse articles from topics you choose and just start playing. Follow specific topics from sports, tech, business, science, or Bitcoin. Newsly will find you the latest articles and read them aloud. They even have digital radio. And do you want to know the best part? They have podcasts. Explore trending podcasts from over 80 countries. And you can find our podcast, Fuck My Work Life, there too. Download and try Newsly for free by visiting www.newsly.me or clicking on the link in our show notes. And be sure to use promo code FWL for a 1-month free premium subscription. Stop scrolling and start listening with Newsly.